And it was in that moment that I think I realized that not only did I feel called to this, but it was really just to prepare my heart and my home for raising a child with special needs myself.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Polaris Connection, your podcast that connects parents of autistic children with industry experts with proven results. I am your host, Brad Broyles, and I'm here with my incredible co-host, Nathan Palmer.
That's all I get today is I'm just the co-host. There's no other branding or label that I get from you today.
But the incredible co-host, Nathan.
You know what?
Everybody
incredible,
loves that.
I will take. It feels well earned.
Yes. Well, we're
happy to be here.
We're excited to have our guest. Today we are joined here with Nicole, who goes by Nick. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Who is a Nicole Kuck?
Mm-hmm. You did it.
Thank you. I've been working on that all morning. It is early in the morning. Nicole, you got your coffee. We have our caffeine, and we're excited to be here with you guys, our wonderful audience. Nick, you tell us a little bit about you and how did you get here on the show?
Yeah. So I am the founder and CEO of Prep and Peony. I'll do it for you.
Thank you.
And I am a special needs planner. That's been my specialty for the last 5 years. Here at Polaris, I got involved because, coincidentally, my girls used to attend school with Aaron Kazmarek. He was their principal for a long time.
Mr. K, for those listening, he's kind of a personality for us.
Mr. K.
It's a personality for everybody.
He was. He is, and my girls still talk about him. So, and we've been out of his regimen for a long time, and so that's kind of how I got originally connected. I still talk with a lot of teachers there that have connected me as you guys started to open up. So I think we talked originally, Nathan, the first time, even before you guys opened doors.
Yeah, and so I just want to clarify something because what you said kind of sounds like an oxymoron, which is special needs planning.
Yes.
As if there's any plan for the world of special needs. And what I liked about our first interaction is I think it was one of the first times that I felt like I had some control over this crazy world we call special needs. And so I'm with that. I'd love to get into what planning is that you're talking about, because our life plans and our daily plans and our holiday plans,
it never works.
Yeah, they and so the idea that we can actually plan something and have some intention as a parent sounds like a dream. So tell us more about what is it? How'd you get into that field?
Yes, let's start there. You don't wake up in the morning, you're like, I want to get into special needs planning.
You definitely don't, because full disclosure, the work part of my job is boring because it's all legal stuff.
Okay. I can relate with that. I am a recovering attorney, and so that's something that I can sympathize with.
Yeah.
We have to help him daily to recover from his previous career. So.
Taking that hat off was a dream, and also realizing how much I had to unprogram my brain. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. My daughter the other day, so I give a lot of workshops. I do a lot of workshops, a lot of education, because the idea of special needs planning is just that people are like, what do you mean we're supposed to plan, or that we can plan? And I was doing actual paperwork the other day, and my daughter comes in, she goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm working. She's like, I thought we give workshops. We, as if she's part of it, but okay. And she said, I thought we give workshops. And I was like, well, honey, this is like what I do after workshops. And she goes, please don't put me down to take over for your business. That looks boring. I was like, okay, noted. But so for me, special needs planning, my background is in special education. So I was a special education educator for quite a number of years. I personally...
But let's back up before that, if you don't mind. Why did you get into special education?
Wholeheartedly or as truthfully as I can be, because I felt like God was calling me to it.
That's listen, there's something, and if you've listened to our podcast before, I was thrown into the world of special needs. My son was diagnosed with autism, and it's not a world I chose, it picked me. And I am consistently amazed at the caliber of people that choose this world. And I've yet to meet somebody that thrives in this space that didn't at some level feel called or drawn to the purpose of it. And so you're just confirming this underlying theory I had that really special needs people are like the best people on earth.
Yeah. Well, and I got into it because Nathan forced me.
So except for Brad,
right,
the people in special needs are the best people on earth.
I will say, because my background is in special education, I felt called to that. And then once I had children, I still stayed really involved in special needs ministry at church. I was still a Special Olympics coach. I was a coach's trainer for the Special Olympics. And then I was a CPI certified blue card trainer for the state of Arizona for a number of years.
But you don't have any children that are special
I
needs?
do.
Oh,
So
you do? Okay.
throughout just after the COVID process, we saw some of my daughter's behaviors really start to be more than quote unquote quirks of hers, right? Cute little quirks. That led us down a long and arduous, like I'm sure many parents understand, diagnosis process. And it was in that moment that I think I realized that not only did I feel called to this, but it was really just to prepare my heart and my home for raising a child with special needs myself. So, during those 2 years of diagnosis process, I came across another special needs planner in the Valley, and it was unimaginable the amount of information that was thrown at me. And I thought to myself, man, if there are families that are in the trenches far heavier than we are. My daughter is pretty high functioning. Hers is tied to a neurological autoimmune. And so many days she just presents very typical. And then when we do have a flare up, then we are emotionally unable to regulate, and we show a lot of symptoms of other special needs. And if there are parents that are in those trenches far more than I am, how are they ever going to find out about this information that could be life altering in the long run for their loved ones?
Yeah, and just to be clear, so that we're not perpetually wondering, what are we planning for? I'm just give you like a little teaser. This is about planning for transition into adulthood. And a lot of times parents, we're just trying to plan for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And before you know it, our child's about to turn 18 and all these big questions. What about services? What power do we have once they become an adult? And if we haven't proactively thought about how to also support them into that phase, we're really kind of behind the game playing catch up. So tell us about how you got to that piece of not just planning for their needs today, but their needs when they become an adult, which is kind of your area of specialties, right?
It is, because the other part of the specialty is actually planning for a case of an emergency. So as a special needs parent, I know that there is nobody, if something was to happen to me, unfortunately, there's nobody that's going to step in and do as well of a job as I do for my child. And the idea of, though, putting together as best as possible a plan to protect them. And a lot of that protection, though, is for when they transition to adulthood. Because at the end of the day, adulthood is when the shift goes from school goals, where we have a lot of structure, we have a lot of services provided and built-in supports, to where adulthood, it takes intentional planning, or it takes intentional thought into how do we create a space or an environment for our child to be as successful as possible.
Now, moving from special education to special ed state planning, is that right?
Special needs planning.
Special needs planning. Thank you. So how did that work? Because that's two different skill sets.
It really is. And for me, my passion lies in the education piece. So when I came across that other planner and I was inundated with all of this information that I feel like I should have come across the last 20 years within my experience and never did, I felt, again, an immediate call to like, oh, I'm supposed to educate. I'm supposed to spread this message and share with other parents raising loved ones with special needs.
You're a natural teacher. Like you really do love to, you can just feel that from you. Like you just want to be helping all those who cannot help themselves.
Right. We are
grateful to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, okay, but do you need like a certain credentialing or licensing to do what you do, or how does that work?
I am a certified legal document preparer.
Okay.
So the state of Arizona has provided a program overseen by the Arizona Supreme Court, which allows me to have gotten my certificate in legal document preparation. What that does is that allows me to create legal documents for families. I personally choose to focus within the estate planning and special needs planning realm, because that's where my heart lies. And so that is, and the reason behind that program for the state was they wanted to make legal document preparation when you didn't need an attorney to represent you somewhere to be more accessible to more families.
Wow. Was there, when you kind of, I don't know how, it seems like you've been called in a way to your new career path. Was there like an experience that you went through? Like I see that you saw that, you're like, wow, that's interesting. But was there like a kind of a more personal reason why you were called to like move over to special needs?
I think that my experience with my daughter and having learned the information and knowing my background in education, that was the experience. The experience for me was I've been blessed with a lot of experience in this community. I've been blessed with the opportunity to teach at all levels, on all stages, on all platforms, and I am living at a maybe smaller scale, but I am living the life that the parents in the community that I want to help are also living. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it becomes about authenticity, the ability to be authentic with families and to be really empathic to what their journey looks like, because they're not necessarily easy topics to discuss.
Well, let's talk about that right now, because I think our audience would really like to know, for example, what is like from your experience, like what are the most important topics that we need to discuss?
Well, that even backing up, so Brad, and I appreciate where you're going with the question. The first time I met Nick and even dived into this area, she brought up things that I didn't even know I didn't know.
Correct. That's exactly
That's what we
it.
need to get to.
That is exactly it.
And so for my other boys, when they turn 18, high five, move out, good job, and hopefully they're prepped for life. She kind of opened this world, again, that I didn't know much about on, hey, are you preparing for all these what ifs when your special needs child turns 18? And these are things you have to figure out before they turn 18. So I don't know the best way to go about this, because we're having a conversation about a topic that, frankly, I think a lot of our parents don't have much information on. So I'm gonna ask you, Nick, to do something that's probably really difficult. Tell me what it is our parents don't know so that we can have a discussion about it.
For sure. I think that one of the biggest things that parents maybe don't know or don't consider, right? Maybe they'll find out later, maybe it's crossed their mind here or there. One of the biggest things when you transition into adulthood is the lack of decision making that you have the day your child turns 18. And so I think for me, it's always been very eye-opening how many families make the assumption that, okay, well, my child still needs to live at home, whether they're communicative, whether they can, no matter their physical ability level, and they assume, well, how else are they going to make decisions? Like, I am the decision maker. But by law, as soon as that individual turns 18, as a parent, you no longer have any decision-making authority for them.
That's a tough shift, because for 18 years, you are so used to taking care of your child at a very high level. And what you're saying, once they turn 18, now the roles have been reversed.
Yeah,
and parents are not ready for that.
And that was that's sounds so obvious when you say it, but as a parent,
right.
Like my son's going to be 16 this year, and when he is 18, he's not quite ready for life. But I hadn't put together the pieces that if I wanted any type of legal authority beyond just telling people, well, I'm his dad, they give me credence that I'm his dad because he's a minor. But once he's 18, being dad doesn't mean anything, because he is legally an adult and legally capable of doing whatever he wants to do. And that prep stage of, if you would like to have authority, you have to do that in advance. That was a shift for me.
And I think where most parents get hung up is the idea of, you're right, at 18, they themselves are supposed to be considered to making all legal decisions on their own by law. However, the reality of a lot of our families in the community is that our children are not ready at 18, or simply that's not their skill set, or they don't have the ability to do so. Again, for some, it's because their cognitive level isn't there. And the idea of, I'm supposed to just let my kid go on their own, although cognitively they might still be 6 or 7 years old. And it's supposed to be something where, one, parents are just supposed to know. But being a parent in that situation, why would you ever think otherwise? Right. Why would you ever think that somebody would tell you, sorry, we can't take into account what you have to say because your child who cannot communicate is over 18?
Well, yeah, and I can just imagine a circumstance where my son and I are together. He's 18. We're in some place where he's has the opportunity to sign some document, make a decision, and I'm there going, no, son, that's not a good idea. He says, no, I want to do it. And they listen to him, not me, because, again, he's 18 and I've done nothing to prep and have any say in the matter.
Where I've seen a lot happen is in the way of meds. For individuals or children that have medication that they take, for whatever reason, they turn 18 and they don't want to. And all they have to do is tell the doctor, no, thank you. And that doctor isn't going to prescribe it. That doctor doesn't have to. They might call it into the pharmacy, but at that point, your child can tell the doctor, I don't want to take that anymore. Or they might say something different. I want something different, where then as a parent, we know that's not going to be helpful. Why is that the path that we're going? But legally, we don't have the ability to make any decisions for them.
So it looks like that we have concern. You said the number one that you're seeing that kids don't want to do or a concern is medication. What are some other areas that you're like, I see this as a common concern?
The other area, the biggest one, is living arrangements. I feel like for some individuals, the idea of you're an adult now, right? So that idea, that notion of like, I'm an adult and I can do what I want is still there for them. Mm-hmm. They don't want to live under your roof anymore. We do have a lot of individuals that will try to like leave home. And I actually had a family from Tucson call me because that's what happened to their child. And they, at that time, didn't have any decision-making authority. And unfortunately, that child was placed into a hospital setting. And the parents had no opportunity to find out what hospital, how long, or anything because they hadn't planned for helping make decisions. And there are multiple types of decision-making support that you can have for your child. However, something should be in place.
Yeah. And that's good to know. I mean, it's not like there's just this one-size-fits-all document we sign that says, hey, here you go, now you're taken care of. Just like there's a broad range of needs on the spectrum, there are a broad range of supports and planning tools. And so I see you kind of as the person to analyze the situation for a family and go, in this case, here are some supports and planning tools that you need to put in place.
And the reality of it is, I think a lot of pushback sometimes, especially, so there are essentially 3 types of decision-making supports that we can have with our child once they turn 18. That is supported decision-making, which is actually just an affidavit. So there is no legality to that at all. That just helps us work with our child to say, hey, who in our bubble or who in your circle do you want to help you make decisions when you have something come across your plate? However, that should always be paired with one of 2 things: power of attorney or legal guardian. And that's a court-appointed position, authority. I think that what happens is parents assume, well, I don't want to be legal guardian because I don't want to take away all their rights. Or I don't want to be legal guardian because I just spoke with a parent 2 days ago that said it just feels like a finality of admitting that my child's always going to need this level of care. However, I think my hope would be that parents understand is that none of it is forever. Nothing that you're signing, even that stuff that is court appointed, has to be the case for the rest of forever. I have parents that have said, you know what, my child turned 18. I think that they're going to be a lot more capable in the next 2 or 3 years, but I want to make sure they're protected until then. And so they've petitioned for legal guardianship so that they can make decisions, so that they could talk with doctors and specialists. However, once their child has continued to grow within their support or vocational job skills and things like that, they've been able to revoke that guardianship and then move to just powers of attorney.
Well, can we ask, if you don't mind, can we explain a little bit to our audience the difference with power of attorney and
that's what I was just
legal guardianship? Like, how does that, where does it begin? Where does it end? What's the difference between 2?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the 3 levels you described. You've got guardianship, which is essentially you're an adult, but I control every aspect. Right? You are, in the law's eyes, you are still a child. Correct. I am still the one to do all decisions.
Correct.
One step back from that, power of attorney is you can make decisions, but so can I. Mm-hmm. And if there's a conflict in that decision-making power, this document governs who kind of trumps who and who can act for what. Mm-hmm. So it's a shared adult experience, if you will.
However, at the end of the day, the child has the ultimate say within the power of attorney.
Correct, because they can always revoke it.
Correct.
And then one step back from that is this affidavit. It's just kind of a general statement of, I've elected to allow these people to assist me. It's not necessarily legally binding per se, but it is an affirmative recognition of people that help me in my life.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. And I think that soapbox moment, every individual over the age of 18, regardless of special needs or typical or anybody, should have powers of attorney. And that just has to do with HIPAA laws across federally. New HIPAA laws have stated that even your spouse is very limited into decision making if something was to happen to you and you were sent to a hospital, a police department, anywhere that you've never been before. Oftentimes when we go to our normal PCPs or we go into urgent care, it says like, who do I give permission to talk about things to? And we can fill in our spouse or our parents or whomever. However, if I'm traveling and I go somewhere, even myself, and something was to happen to me, my husband is very limited in the decisions he can make on my behalf.
Well, and Nathan and I, we had this conversation a long time ago about power of attorneys once your kids just turned 18, just to kind of help them if they're impaired in any way. We had a friend that had a motorcycle accident. His son had a motorcycle accident over the age of 18, and he, as a father, wasn't able to help him because he didn't have any power of attorney. So it sounds like that's just a good practice, maybe to consider with our children that who are like it's funny. My kids just barely turned 18. I had one that he's like, well, I don't know, he's like 20 or 19, and I wasn't even prepared for it, you know?
Well, this field, ironically, is typically considered like end of life planning.
It is.
Or,
it is. And that's what makes it so difficult to talk about.
Yeah. And I think maybe we need to reconsider end of childhood planning because really that transition to adulthood, while we hope we prepare them for the future, the reality is, I mean, just like us, we were thrown into adulthood and we just, find our swim.
Sink
and
or swim.
Exactly.
Sink or swim.
We always find like a new brand every time that we have our podcast. So that's it. It's just not estate planning. It's end of childhood planning.
Yeah. And I think that's a key part of parenting. It's not just this hope that the world will just take care of our kid. It's not. I can at some level prep and help that transition and make it a little bit more seamless. So it's good to proactively think about that and not just wait until, I'm 60 or 70, I'll think about these things. But for our children, they can be proactive tools and extend that level of our parenting ability to give them the time. I mean, our ESA program in the state allows education of our kids all the way up to age 22.
Right.
That's because we know it's going to take a little bit of extra time, but there's no equivalent program from a legal standpoint.
100%.
Hey, we're going to let the law defer adulthood for your child until 22. It's just 18 unless we dictate otherwise.
Especially with special needs. You would think that there would be some type of additional mechanism.
That's not a bad lobby. We can go meet with legislators.
I was like, well, that's a good thought.
Yeah,
However,
but absent, I mean, it would be cool if you had some level of diagnosis that with that came a state recognition of, okay, your child is not automatically deemed adult with all these powers, and maybe it's elective, but because there is no differentiation, the age is the age, and if you haven't planned for it, then be ready for a complete loss of authority unless you're proactive.
And I think the hardest part for me in that conversation or that statement is that there isn't anything like that. And when a child turns 18, the other thing I think that parents can start to prepare for is what benefits their child are available to their child.
That was literally going to be my very next question.
But it is fascinating to me how there are some individuals with special needs who have specific diagnoses that are lifelong. They are not going anywhere, and yet they turn 18, and you have to go through all of the hoops to prove that, once again, even though you've just spent their last 18 years serving that, proving it for DDD services, proving it for ESA funds so you can get specific funds, those kind of things. And then they turn 18 and it's like, oh, well, do they still have that chromosomal deficiency?
Didn't they just grow out of that?
Right? Like, that's really hard for me sometimes when I have parents that are in tears because their Social Security supplemental income is being denied because they didn't go to the right specialist to get the right paperwork filled out for a disability that their child has had since birth and isn't going anywhere. And so it just is a process in understanding early what government benefits your child will be eligible for and the proper steps and avenues to take in order to get them on those benefits or to get them to start receiving those benefits as soon as possible.
Well, and where do our parents go for that? That's a great point. I mean, is that something that you help them out with, or how would they know? I always worry about, like, I don't know what I don't know.
Right. I think for a lot of parents, especially those, I have quite a few that didn't get DDD services when they were younger because of whatever reason, or they didn't qualify at a level they thought, and then they make the assumption that their child is not eligible for anything else ever. Like, they've gotten that no when they were younger, they're certainly not going to get it when they're older, and they've checked the box and they don't try again, and that's definitely not the case at all. Typically speaking, yes, I do help families navigate what eligibility they have in the different opportunities or different programs that the government offers for adults with special needs. And then we look at, okay, how do we best prepare ourselves so that when the time comes that we can apply, that we're setting ourselves up for the best success.
Well,
and what are some of those programs? So I know that, and this is at a high level, because I know you can get really down into the weeds, but what are some things that even are available for children with special needs, and are they state specific, or are these federal programs? Because we've got listeners from other areas that are looking for, just it's sad to say, but states that offer more supports for special needs than others.
There are. When we're talking about benefits, we're talking essentially about two sets of financial benefits for individual special needs. And one of them is what we consider like cash benefits. And the first, typically for an individual with special needs, is once they are 18 in 1 week, they can apply for Supplemental Security Income. That's SSI. Not to be mistaken for SSDI, which is when somebody says, oh, I got on disability. Mm-hmm. Very different. Okay. SSDI is an insurance that individuals pay into as they work. And then they get hurt on the job, or something happens, or their ability levels decrease. And so they, quote unquote, go on disability based on what they have paid into it.
Gotcha.
So that's special needs or typical individuals. That's SSDI. However, for a lot of individuals with special needs, that's a long ways away. And that has to do with eligibility. You have to work 40 quarters of W-2 wages in order to even be eligible for SSDI.
Gotcha.
So what typically happens is most individuals, the first quote unquote cash benefit they can receive is Supplemental Security Income, SSI. Okay. And that is a monthly stipend. Right now it's $967 a month, and it is meant to supplement housing, food, basic needs.
Okay.
See, I had no idea that was
I didn't know that was either.
I'm sure a lot of parents wonder, how are these kids going to financially take care of themselves? And you're saying there is a built-in security funding mechanism to supplement those needs for them.
Now,
Correct.
Is that a state?
That's federal.
That's federal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is federal. And I will say, what happens is because of parents' just lack of knowledge, they don't know what they don't know. Right now, SSI is being denied when parents apply for their child on behalf of their child. It's being denied at over 60% right now, the first 3 times you apply.
Really?
It is,
60%.
on average.
Just because, or for cause? And maybe that's not a good question.
Like, I don't know if I should answer this if this is going out in the world.
Hang on. Well, let me ask it a different way, because I don't want to throw out there that by policy we're trying to defer people from the program. I guess the question would more be, is it really that complicated? In other words, are you missing things? Is it laced with legalities that maybe parents aren't understanding, or I checked the wrong box? How much is procedural versus just getting through the system?
I would say it's probably 35% procedural, because most individuals actually apply for SSDI the first time instead.
Got it. So it's not like government forms are easy to understand.
I was going to say, they make it so easy for everybody.
Exactly, right? Like SSDI is the one thing on the webpage that says disability, and so that's what they assume they're needing for their loved one. I think the other 65% is actually a lack of empathy within the system that's looking at paperwork. And my personal opinion, this is just my opinion, is that they are trying to weed out those that are not willing to keep pushing.
All right, so we need to adopt a new logo. If at first you don't succeed, try Correct.
But it seems like that's the common theme with special needs parents.
100%.
You know, like, how many times we talk to our family and our community, and it's all about like, how hard do I have to do it? I have to do it again. I have to do it again. And the lack of support that we see is frustrating.
Well, that's what this podcast is for. You know, that when most of us are out there on our own as parents just trying to figure it out. And so it's reassuring to hear, no, it's normal to get denied once, twice, maybe even 3 times in this application. And once you hear, listen, my favorite word in special needs is normal. Like, oh, that's normal that your day got messed up. That's normal that Christmas was a disaster. That's normal that your kid throws himself on the floor in the grocery store, because our life feels anything but normal. Yeah. So if we can have a professional say, hey, it's okay. That frustration is totally normal. You're not alone. Lots of people go through it, and there's still a path through. I know that sounds funny because I should be mad at the system, but I'm more reassured going, oh, that's okay.
Yeah. It is. I think where I do get mad at the system is as a special needs parent. It is their whole life we are fighting at a level that just doesn't seem necessary to get our kids the support that they deserve. And I feel like once parents make that transition and they're like, okay, we really want to be able to help our child succeed after 18. We are really blessed that we have this opportunity for supplemental income. And then they get denied that first time and they're like, I don't have anything left.
Yeah, what do I do?
I don't have anything left.
What am I supposed to do? And you cannot apply until the child's 18, right?
18 in 1 week, which is, I love the attorney that did that rule, as if that has any bearing on life.
I could just see this weird dude with glasses. Wait, and 1 week?
Oh, you were a day too early. I don't know.
Hold on, this was 5 days. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so we have there's cash benefits, which is fantastic to know. I mean, at some level, I almost wonder, can I rent my room to my son in my house?
You should rent your room to your son in your house, because supplemental security income is to supplement for quote unquote rent. And if you are not renting a room to your child, they will actually decrease that amount from $967. Usually they'll decrease it by $300 to $350.
Well, that's a great nuance to understand. I thought I was just kidding, but you're serious.
No, I'm dead serious.
Okay. No.
I was thinking like taxes or something, you know?
Well, I mean, the whole intent, and I listen, it sounds, I don't want to say I'm approaching this as, oh, there's this loophole where I can pad my pockets with cash.
Right.
I want my son to be autonomous. I want him to self-advocate. I want him to learn skills to take care of himself. And right now, we're doing that with education. But when he's older, the only way I can teach him about, hey, this is what a house payment looks like, is to start walking him into that process. And if I can start with his bedroom, say, this is now your house, and you have to take care of your space, and you pay money for that, and you buy your food. If I can teach that through actual monetary principles, that for me is an education opportunity. So it's nice to at least hear there's a reward for doing that, and that gives them the opportunity.
There is. And I think there are nuances though that families don't know they don't know. So let's say that they've heard, okay, I can get SSI, my child can have this supplemental security income. I could start teaching them on how to manage that money. How do we do that? However, we're taught always like, let's learn how to save, learn how to budget your money so that you're setting aside a certain amount. However,
if they save too much, I'm guessing this is a financial trigger.
It is an eligibility level that your child can only have a specific amount of money in their bank account, which is only about 2 months worth of supplemental security.
And is that another reason why they might get denied with SSI then?
Oh, yes. So if parents aren't planning ahead of time.
So if you plan too well.
Right.
And you give them a savings account too large, then you disqualify them from support.
How about if you put that into like some type of like retirement account for the kid?
So if it is in their name, then it would still disqualify them. Now, there are legal processes. Part of what I do is I help families consider different types of special needs trusts. Special needs trusts then have their own EIN number, which then removes it from our child's care. Okay. Now, caveat to that is they do not have the ability to touch it on their own. Somebody is always managing that on their behalf.
But that's fine. That's kind of part of the planning anyways.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it at least keeps them eligible. So when we're talking about, like you had stated earlier, end of life, quote unquote, planning, right? The idea of, here, I've worked really hard as a parent. If something was to happen to me, we've worked really hard to make sure that we've left something behind for our children. However, a child with special needs who will be receiving Medicaid, which is our access, or Medicare down the road, Altex, and or supplemental security income once they turn 18, I have to be really aware of that. Even when I'm planning now, my daughter's only 13. Because if something was to happen to me tomorrow, and then I've just left 50% of my assets to my daughter, she's never going to become eligible when she turns 18.
And I think that's the part that is is most daunting for parents is at some level we have to hope and believe that there are supports for our kids. Sounds like there are financial supports. Certainly there are insurance and healthcare based supports. There's probably retirement supports. There might be living assistance supports. But within each one of those, there's all these eligibility standards and qualifications, and navigating and understanding, oh, well, yeah, that gives you this one. However, box 6C disqualifies you from this benefit over on this side. And being able to fit all those together where you're not impairing your ability to receive assistance is critical. I mean, you mentioned even just your bank account. I can imagine Uncle Joe wanting to set up a college fund for my kid, just trying to help in good faith, giving him a check for his birthday. My son not thinking about it, deposits it, and now he disqualifies his SSI. So building a structure for them to receive financial support from individuals or beneficiaries that just want to be altruistic and helpful, that doesn't disqualify them from state services while still managing eligibility across other programs. I'm understanding now why a person like you is more important, just to create that.
And there are some families that are like, but I want my child to learn how to save and spend their money. So there in 2014, there became a law. It's called the ABLE account, Achieving Better Life Expectancy. And so that is an account where your child could have their own debit card. They could be saving, those kind of things. That is a federal program that each state manages on their own. That your child can have up to $100,000 in that account without affecting their eligibility. So that's a great opportunity. However,
here's the box.
There's the nuance, right?
I love how you say. However,
there are specific trusts and programs like ABLE account. I think they're wonderful when you have a child that is able to learn and be educated and pay bills or save up for something they're really wanting. However, some of those accounts, like an ABLE account, they're called Medicaid payback accounts. So if my child whose ABLE account is sitting there happens to pass away, instead of being able to say, okay, I want to leave this to their sibling or whomever, it actually goes back to the state.
Okay. I guess that's
so then it's a blend of, well, do you want an ABLE account or would you rather operate this through a trust? And there's pros and cons, I'm sure, both ways. Yeah.
And there's ways to manage both of them, but it takes intentional planning on, okay, but I never want it to reach more than $10,000 in that ABLE account. I want to give them the autonomy to build responsibility and learn money management without just handing over a ridiculous amount of money if something was to happen.
That's kind of cool because you can share an ABLE account. Really, they manage and govern. And so you can dictate the level of financial exposure you want them to have.
Correct.
And if you want them to have a lot, it's all the way up to $100,000. If you want it a little, that's fine. That you balance the rest in special needs where someone else is making those financial decisions. I mean, it's the nice thing is, Nick, that I have a lot of options. And that's not something I'm used to having as a parent. Like, it almost feels like I have very few options. And maybe the overwhelming part is that for the first time, I feel like there's choice and there's intentionality in a world that is otherwise the opposite of that.
And I think that is kind of the hang up that parents get when they learn, oh, when my child turns 15, 16, we should really start considering these things if we haven't already. Again, I do think that there is a level of planning that should be done no matter the age of your child.
Right.
Just knowing my child is 5, but knowing, gosh forbid something happened to me, I want to make sure that I'm setting them up so that whoever is caring for them understands things that are necessary for when they do turn 18.
Sure.
Right? However, what happens is parents think, okay, well, now I'm looking into all this. I'm looking at the eligibility requirements. They have received checks for their birthdays for the last 16 years, and now we're trying to move them or spend them or whatever the case is. And then they realize how wonderful it might feel originally to have these options, because to your point, very rarely it's like, oh, you get this checkbox or you get nothing. And now they have multiple to choose from, but then it becomes overwhelming. Then it becomes, I'll get to it later. And that's the scary part for me, someone that sees the planning side on both sides, who has seen families that have planned really well and how fruitful that can be for their child as they're transitioning into adulthood, or families that are instead scrambling because their child is 18 and now they know that they need that supplemental security income and they have too much in a bank account, or they realize that, oh, my child was out with their aunt and uncle and they needed to go to pick up some medicine and nobody could help them because nobody had legal authority or even power of attorney, right? Those kind of things. I think what happens is that excitement, that original excitement that comes with all of these choices very quickly turns into overwhelm. And then it's like, I'll get to it later.
Right.
I'll get to it later.
Sure.
So you just almost kind of freeze up because there's too many options. And
It's a lot.
It is a lot. And it's a different way of thinking and different way of care that most parents are not used to. Like, we work so hard to care for our child with special needs, and now we have to shift it sounds like around like 16, you recommend like 16, 15-ish
is when you really want to start being able to be intentional about making considerations, right? Whether that's, okay, I really want to spend the next year really looking at and considering, okay, where will my child be at this trajectory when they turn 18, and what decision making do I need to follow up with? Am I going to go the legal guardian route? Am I going to need to go power of attorney
Is there kind of like a question or box or like a checklist that you give your clients of like, okay, here are the questions you need to start thinking through within this next year to prepare your child once they turn 18?
If they come to me in time, yes. If not, I would say, again, a good majority of my families come in a frantic moment.
Sure.
And at that point, those are just conversations that we have, that because we're trying to have them at 2 times speed in order to move forward wherever is best fit.
Just out of curiosity, with the frantic moments, what are the concerns that come back to you the most that you see? Is there like financial? You said medication was one, health, living is another one.
The 2 biggest are going to be medical decisions. So the inability, all of a sudden, the doctor that their kid has gone to, for even the doctors, right? To your point,
multiple doctors.
Touche. But a lot of our specialists and doctors that our kids see, because of the nature of their diagnoses, will see them till 22, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's another avenue. However, by law, some of them will.
However,
No, I'm laughing because my kid's got diabetes, and so he has a number of different things that are modified for him, and he hates getting his blood drawn. And I'm just picturing this day, a day after he turns 18 in there, and they've got his record, and he says, I don't want to do this today.
100%.
Well, sir, we cannot force you. And I'm, no, wait, but we need to draw your blood. I don't want to, Dad. And
they cannot.
And they cannot force it. And I know that sounds cheesy, but
no, but it's the reality.
It's the reality. And he can decide, I just don't like that. I don't want a dose today. I don't want more insulin. And so it's being intentional and just aware that, listen, if you want to still be a parent in a legal sense, you have to reserve and preserve that right. And it's just nice to know there's levels to do that, because the other thing I think that keeps parents at bay is we don't want to concede that our kid isn't going to grow up. And so I was glad to hear that there's levels of integration. It's not just a full, okay, you're just not an adult. We can go, maybe you do need that, or maybe it's, let's share adulthood and let's map out what that looks like, because I want to empower him too. And so having that flexibility of just that frank conversation.
And even within the legal guardianship, the biggest thing I hear is driving rights and voting rights.
Okay.
Standard is that because we are now treating them as if they're under 18 from a legal standpoint again, because we're taking legal guardianship authority, is that they shouldn't have that right to make those decisions, things like that. However, even within that legal guardianship process, there are ways to prove, like, no, even though they need help with overall decision making, I do think they understand enough to be able to vote, go and vote. And you just have to show proof of how and why. The same with driving. I have individuals that drive even though they have legal guardianship over them. And that sometimes for families is like, it doesn't make sense. Why would I want to take away their quote unquote legal decision making rights by being legal guardian and take away their ability to do adult things like driving? And that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, no, I'm almost looking at this really, what you're providing, Nick, is the runway. Mm-hmm. Like I think of a bird, and when they're learning to fly from the nest, they kick them out of the nest and they have to learn to fly on the fall down. And that's how we treat a lot of our kids. 18, all right, best of luck. We're creating a runway where we can ramp them up to speed so they can learn to fly instead of just throwing them out.
Right.
And the level and the length of that runway and the preparation we need for it is entirely up to us. And that, as a parent, that's empowering. It's not scary. That's something that I go, wonderful, then I just want to learn more. So how do we learn more? How do I, as a parent, understand even where to start? Do I need a consultant like you? Is this something I can actually just educate myself? Like, what do I do as a parent?
I mean, the reality of it is you can do as much research as you are able, right? We joked about it before we started this morning. Like, ChatGPT is a great resource. Now, I will say it does still lie often.
Sure.
So there will be times that you ask it a question on that transition or what are my next steps, and they will be 100% wrong.
Sure.
So there is that caveat, but it is a good place to just even have that initial like list, because it feels long, right? And I think at that time that's when people look to, whether it's professionals like myself, whether they go into, if their child is part of a program like Polaris, or they're part of a day program or those kind of things, and they really lean on that community to say, hey, Brad, what did you do when your child turned 18? Nathan, I know your son's 16 now. Like, what are your plans? What is it looking? So I do think there is a level of just community and experience that parents can learn from. Mm-hmm. But there are moments where even those parents, there's plenty that they don't know.
Sure.
And so,
well, that's a good mindset, that for as much as we try to teach our kids, we can't forget as parents, we need to still be educating ourselves. Short of hiring a professional, Nick, are there informational seminars or resources to just help get some general exposure to this field for parents that
like
we can
an
offer as a
association
resource?
they can almost join, or is there like a coalition that they can get more resources
Like you mentioned, you sometimes do webinars or events.
yeah,
What does
I
that
was
look
going to
like?
say there are some members in the Valley, like myself, special needs planners. I give webinars or workshops, both in person and webinars, at minimum once a month, usually twice, one of each. And those are great places to start, whether it's with me or with another planner. A lot of estate planners, if they happen to specialize in special needs planning, I will caution, if you're like, okay, I'm going to go to an estate planner and I know that I need special needs planning, not all estate planners are educated the same.
No, a lot of them sell their craft. I understand that, and they're biased where they're going to tell you the story to sell the product that they offer. And that's why on the podcast I was trying to dive into so many areas to let them know there are choices and there are levels of care. So if one doesn't sound right, there may be alternative resources. And yours sound like they're more general informational webinars?
Yeah, so my webinars, there's no expectation of anything other than maybe follow-up questions. Again, my passion does lie in the education piece. If
Perfect.
I could go and I could just give a workshop every single day, that is what I would go do, because especially as a parent, I consider myself a support needs parent, right? Especially as a parent myself of a child who needs additional supports, for me to be as educated as I can then allows me to help in that transition process. Because on top of educating myself and preparing myself for that transition, there are steps that as parents we should take to start preparing our own child emotionally, physically for that transition as well.
Yeah. Well, and we can put some of those contact information in our show notes so people have access to that webinar. I think that's just a great resource. I mean, even just today, we've met before and you're reminding me of things that I have forgotten to follow up on. And it's just, sometimes it's overwhelming, but really, Nick, it feels good to know that I can take back some of that control. Mm-hmm. And as a parent, that's a good day.
That is a good day. And Nick, we are so grateful that you are here.
Thanks.
We're going to have to invite you back because I feel like we've only scratched the surface. Like we are not even close to.
No, I think today was a general idea of a
is.
concept. I would love, if you're open to it, to kind of offer one of those webinars here. So we can outline some of these steps and processes that just start the dialogue for our parents to be able to generate the questions.
And that's what they are. I will be honest and say it is a lot of information. Mm-hmm. But many times I'm given an hour to speak to a group or to share on a webinar, and I want to inundate them with as much information as they can. So then from there, they can start doing other research, whether they follow up for more questions or that's what they throw into ChatGPT, right? I learned in this webinar, there's a difference between SSI and SSDI. How does that apply to my child? It at least, again, starts conversations and it points them down a runway of that whole transition process.
Yeah.
I think we just invited a part 2. So how do
part
the ABLE
3,
accounts work?
part
What is the
4,
SSI? What are the
part 5?
Yep.
This is now your podcast, Nick.
I love it.
No, but thank you so much for being here. And we're going to have to wrap up. But thank you so much for your experience and everything you bring to the table and what you do for the special needs community. It's fantastic what you do. So thank you.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you. And if there is truly any way that I can support any of your community, just know that I'm always here.
Oh, hey, you've already opened the door.
We will take you up on that.
Sorry. You're probably going to say sorry.
Just kidding.
Anyways, thank you so much for making us part of your day. Please do not forget to subscribe so that you'll never miss a wonderful conversation like we just had and inspire another connection. We want to thank our producer, Jesse Palmer, and our director, Dallin Davis. Until next time, let's do some good.